Astranis is a company that has a new way of connecting people in some of the most remote and underserved parts of the world. One of its first customers is Pacific Dataport, a telecommunications provider in Alaska. Alaska is a state that faces many challenges when it comes to internet access. It has a vast and rugged terrain, a harsh climate, and a low population density. Many Alaskans rely on expensive and slow satellite internet or have no internet at all. But Astranis has a solution. Arcturus, its first small satellite in geostationary orbit. Arcturus is about the size of a dishwasher and weighs only 400 kilograms. It was launched on SpaceX's Falcon Heavy rocket earlier this month and has reached its orbital slot at 163 degrees west. It has successfully connected to a gateway station in Utah and beamed its first signals to user terminals in Alaska. Arcturus combines the advantages of low Earth orbit and geostationary orbit to provide broadband access to Alaska. Low Earth orbit satellites are closer to the Earth and have lower latency, but they need many satellites to cover a large area and they move across the sky. Geostationary orbit satellites are farther away and have higher latency, but they can cover a large area with one satellite and they stay above a fixed location. Arcturus is small enough to fit on a secondary payload of a rocket, which reduces the launch cost and time. It is also flexible enough to adjust its coverage area and frequency according to the customer's needs. It uses a software-defined radio that can change its parameters on orbit. It can provide up to 9 gigabits per second of capacity, which is more than enough for Alaska's demand. With Arcturus, Astranis hopes to bring faster, cheaper, and more reliable internet service to Alaska by mid-June. This will benefit many Alaskans who depend on internet for education, healthcare, business, and entertainment. Arcturus is the first of many small satellites that Astranis plans to deploy over the next 2 years to serve other regions of the world that lack internet connectivity. Astranis is a company that makes small geostationary satellites for broadband internet. One of the key features of its satellites is the software-defined radio payload. This payload allows Astranis to adjust the frequency, bandwidth, power, and modulation of its signals in real time. This means that Astranis can tailor its services to different customers and applications, depending on their needs and preferences. For example, Astranis can use different frequency bands for different regions and markets, such as Ku-band, Ka-band, or C-band. It can also allocate more bandwidth and power to areas with higher demand or lower coverage. It can even switch between different waveforms, such as the protected tactical waveform that it is integrating for the U.S. Space Force. This waveform adds more security and resilience to satellite communications. By using software-defined radio, Astranis can make the most efficient use of spectrum and capacity, which are scarce and valuable resources in space. It can also adapt to changing conditions and requirements, such as interference, congestion, weather, or customer preferences. This gives Astranis an edge over traditional satellite operators that use fixed hardware and signals. With its software-defined radio payload, Astranis is bringing more flexibility and innovation to the satellite communications industry. It is also enabling more access and connectivity for people around the world, starting with its first satellite that will provide internet services over Alaska. Astranis is a company that has developed a new way of providing internet access from space, using small satellites in geostationary orbit. Geostationary orbit is a position 37,000 kilometers above the Earth, where the satellite stays over the same spot and can deliver continuous service. This is different from other satellite internet systems that use hundreds of satellites in low Earth orbit, which have to move across the sky and switch between each other. One of the places that Astranis is bringing internet to is Alaska, a state that has long suffered from a digital divide. Many Alaskans live in remote areas that are not connected by fiber cables or cell towers, and rely on expensive and unreliable satellite internet options. According to a 2019 report by the Federal Communications Commission, only 48% of rural Alaskans had access to broadband internet, compared to 97% of urban Alaskans. To change this situation, Astranis has partnered with Pacific Dataport Inc. PDI, a local company that was created to bridge Alaska's digital divide. PDI is launching the first-ever commercial Astranis satellite, named Arcturus, as part of the Aurora project. The Aurora project aims to bring affordable and reliable broadband internet to all Alaskans, regardless of location. Arcturus is a small satellite that weighs about 350 kilograms and is about the size of a kitchen stove. It was built mostly in-house by Astranis, using a software-defined radio payload that allows it to adjust its frequency and power according to customer needs. It was launched on SpaceX's Falcon Heavy rocket in May 2023, and arrived in its geostationary orbit over Alaska shortly after. Astranis successfully tested the satellite's performance and connectivity with user terminals in Alaska, and announced that it was working perfectly. Arcturus is expected to begin providing service to customers in Alaska by mid-June. It will offer up to 7.5 gigabits per second of bandwidth, which is more than the combined capacity of all existing satellites over Alaska. It will also offer lower latency and higher data rates than current satellite internet options. PDI has already signed contracts with several internet service providers, schools, healthcare facilities, tribal organizations, and government agencies in Alaska to use Arcturus bandwidth. But Arcturus is only the beginning. Astranis and PDI have plans to expand the Aurora system with more satellites in the future, covering more regions and offering more capacity. They also hope to replicate their model in other parts of the world that lack adequate internet access. Astranis' vision is to connect the 4 billion people on Earth who are still offline, using small satellites in geostationary orbit that can deliver high-speed internet anywhere.